Domo minasan, konnichiwa, Kairi desu. Hi everyone, my name is Kairi. It's nice to meet you. Um, Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the Filipino English accent. I'm going to be watching, reacting, and giving some feedback to a young lady from Korea. I believe she's Korean. She could be half. I'm not entirely sure. Um, just a few points, a couple of points before I start the assassination. Sorry. Uh, but the first one is I have watched this already, and all the emotional reactions that we tend to do when we first watch something, it's gone. I even made some notes to make sure that I'm not going off on a tangent and sticking to the points. The second thing is I do have a slight bias against certain Filipino traits, such as Filipino time and things like that. So, for the purposes of this video, I'll try and keep it objective. We'll look at language, pronunciation, enunciation, intonation, and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's start.
Hey guys, it's Jessica here, and I'm
Jessica
back with
Limanyo.
another talking video today. I'm going to be talking about possible reasons why some Koreans may underrate Filipino English. A few months ago, I made a video on cancel Korea, which went quite viral in the Philippines. Like my video was like trending number one, which was an honor, but at the same time, made me really sad reading the comments. In that video, there were lots of comments of people saying that Koreans will underrate the Filipino English accent or will underrate Filipinos in general, but still come to the Philippines to learn English. And I know there was another video that many of you linked in the comments by the time, which was this video about this celebrity. I'm a little bit dusty, mimicking the Filipino English accent as if she was mocking it.
Okay, so I think she was doing it, maybe she was mocking it, but it was for entertainment purposes. It was comedic, and if you didn't get the comedy in it, then I would assume that it's a you thing and not a everyone else thing. Comedy is definitely one of those things I think that should not be scrutinized. I think it's one of those few outlets we have where we can talk about taboo subjects, make racial slurs, make sexist remarks, and the people who know it's wrong. Like the whole idea comedy is because one, it's a little naughty and risque, and the other reason is because uh a lot of the stereotypes and stuff like that, they have a certain element of truth. So, I mean, it's your YouTube at the moment, so that's your opinion and you're absolutely entitled to it. But usually, what you would do is if you got an issue, you'd move along to the next forum or whatever. Like, let people who enjoy it. You find whatever rocks your boat, sinks your ship, and that kind of stuff.
And that certainly did make me feel uncomfortable. Like it was really not so appropriate. I
That
personally
sounds
learned English
weird.
in the Philippines. I grew up in the Philippines for 9 years,
Yes, okay.
so I may have the Filipino English accent. And there was this incident that made me feel ashamed of my accent. It was a time when I already became a trainee in a certain K-pop company, and there was a time when a bunch of visitors came to our company to look at each trainee one by one. It was my turn, and they asked what are my special abilities. And I said, "Oh, I know how to speak in English." I introduced myself in English, like, "Hi, my name is blah, blah, blah." And after that, he was like, "Yeah, you know how to speak in English, but you have the Filipino English accent." And honestly, I can tell you that really hurt me. I know.
Okay. So you were hurt. I mean, that's a you thing again. Um, what the gentleman said, like you said, visitors, but I would assume it was an interview. If it's a question like that, I would assume it was an interview, and it was. was it modeling school or something like that. So um, interviewers, a lot of interviewing techniques are usually based around putting people on the spot, saying things to get a reaction, see how you work under under pressure or under a certain situation. So it's really not, I mean, for him to just openly say and be frank about what he wants to say, it's not really, you probably spend a little too much time in the Philippines if you're that overly sensitive about it. You shouldn't be, especially considering the field of work that you're in, like the was it pop idol industry or modeling industry? Those things are really, you know, uh, dog eat dog. So you need to grow a little bit of a thicker skin, I think. Um, so yeah, let's carry on.
No, if I think about it now.
Oh, just another point. What he said wasn't wrong. I assume, like he said the first part, you speak really good. Yeah, you speak English, which was right. And then, but he said but, which probably inferred that the next part was negative. But it's true. You do have a Filipino accent. Like the point is not lost just because he inferred in a negative point. He said, but you have a Filipino accent, so and listening to you right now, you don't have a Filipino accent, so I would assume it's a you thing, like you felt ashamed by your accent. I mean, you clearly don't have a Filipino accent now, so you must have adjusted or changed.
Now, he is the wrong one to say that. But
Okay, that's just bad English generally. He is the wrong one. He is in the wrong, or it was wrong of him to say that, uh, would suffice.
by the time I was just so hurt, I was just so young, and the immediate thought in my head was that, okay, I should change my accent. So that was a time when I started watching a lot of Western media and entertainment just to change my accent, which was totally, absolutely unnecessary.
But you did it, clearly, evidently you did it, so, what's the complaint?
I could really relate to you guys when you think that Koreans underrate the Filipino English accent because I've experienced it myself, and that is not the only time. Ever since the time I came to Korea last,
The different people that I have met, the different people that I had met, it's past 2020, the different people I had met, uh, yeah, I think it's past tense, but okay.
March 2020, I've met a lot of different people through a lot of different work opportunities, which I'm very, very thankful for. Every time I speak English in front of them, they would be impressed. They would be like, "Oh, you're so good at English. Like, wow, like, where did you learn your English?" Or some people even said, "Oh, where in the US are you from?" Or even something like, "Oh, you sound native. You sound like a native English speaker." And then my reply obviously would be, "Oh, I learned my English in the Philippines. I never learned English in the US." And I would
Okay, so let's touch on a few points. She said you sound like a native, so there's a difference between native level and a native level speaker and a native speaker. Oh, I suppose native level and native speaker. So native speaker is just your everyday Joe who grew up in certain country, and if you would ask them, why do you say this instead of this? Most of them will use chokkan. I don't know how to say chokkan in English. Chokkan. Intuition. They'll use intuition. So intuitively, they'll just say, "It. That's just the way it is." Whereas a person of native level will. I mean, we're just mincing words. It's semantics, but there's a differentiation. There's a difference between two certain types of people, and those who learn English, like this lady here as a second language. Um, where they actually have to understand grammar and nuances. And the biggest thing, I mean, we're going to go off on a tangent, but the biggest thing is if you look at this screen here, this is the IPA chart. This is the International Phonemic Alphabet. So this is the thing that we use to make our uh to sound out the words more accurately. So there are two ways to have natural English. The first one is very easy. You go to the country of the language you want to learn and you live there and you listen to it and you're sort of put in a situation where you're pressured and it's like survival mode. So you're forced to learn it. You listen to it every day, you use it every day, and as obviously as the years go by, you'll attune to the accent of said country. The other way is to learn the phonemic alphabet, to learn these phonemes. And what happens is these teach you um, how to pronounce a word accurately by just looking at a dictionary and seeing the phonemic word next to it, which is, it's great. It's great. Now, certain things, certain languages, like the reason it's not superior is because the Philippines, English is not their first language, it's their second. I don't know if they study this, but they probably would if they study it as a second language. But what happens is the language is mixed with the language of English is merged with, like, any language you're learning is merged with the language of like your mother tongue, usually your mother tongue. So we get like a fusion. So like Indian people, they have like Indian English. Japanese people have Japanese English. So for example, we say like chocolate, we say chocoreto. So we have katakana. We only have few limited sounds in Japanese. Spaghetti is spaghetti. So, it is one of those things, and it's a reason why certain types of accents sound more natural and more native. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. I know, for example, Vietnamese people in Japan, we have sa, shi, su, se, so shi. But a lot of Vietnamese people, I hear them say si, like it's si instead of shi. So I mean, I guess that's one of those things there. So let's carry on to this lady.
I'd say like 80% really of their reactions would be not you don't have the Filipino accent.
Yeah.
And by them saying that, it also implies that they are underrating that Filipino accent. That
Okay. So let's talk about this underrating the Filipino accent. It's not even about underrating, it's about inferiority and superiority. Um, as I mentioned before, in the Philippines, English is a second language or third language, I'm not sure, but it's not their main language. It's not the first language. The first language of the Philippines is Tagalog, and uh, compared to compared to English speaking countries whose first language is English, UK, America, Australia, New Zealand, um, it's always, there's no doubt about it, it's undisputable fact, it's always vastly superior. It's always vastly superior in comparison. Now, there are certain people like second generation. We have like second generation who grew up in an English speaking country, um, and they don't really have much of an accent. Majority of them don't have much of an accent from their mother tongue because they've adopted and they listen to the language of the country that they're in, and they understand the phonetic sounds, and then they regurgitate it and then practice it and listen and practice, and it's just a give and take and back and forth of daily activities.
because I don't have it, I'm good. But if I had it, will I be bad? I don't know.
No, you
So
won't be
every time a lot of
you
Koreans
won't be
show
bad.
such reactions regarding my accent,
You won't be bad per se. It's just one of those things that you don't sound native, because I mean, English comes from England, right? English comes from England, therefore that's why it's called English. I mean, I heard someone say, "Oh, I speak American," which maybe you speak Americanized English, but American itself is not a language. It's the same kind of thing. Like if I want to learn German, I would probably find a German person to learn from because that's like where it originated from. Now, the German person might just be a native speaker, that's all, and so therefore they might only be able to explain to me through 촉감, through intuition. They might be only be able to explain certain things through intuition, whereas a teacher would be able to explain grammatical rules and things like that. Give you some homework, you go and do it, practice. Um, but yeah, it's a concept, but it's not like there's nothing strange about the concept. It's an understandable concept. When you want to learn English, right? You want to go to a country. I mean, you want to go to a country that speaks English, but you want to go like you would want to go to like the best country, the way you can learn. Like you want to give yourself the best opportunity. Um, so I'll explain it like this. Most Japanese people, when they want to learn English, the closest, cheapest, and most convenient. English speaking country is the Philippines, but as I said, the Philippines is not it's not their first language. So if they have a bit more money, they'll travel a bit further to Australia. If they have a bit more, they'll travel to Canada and America. And if they have a quite a fair amount of savings saved up, they'll go to the UK. Now, it's not a superiority thing. This is just a geography thing. It's really expensive going to the UK and living in the UK, especially places like London. So there's that. Um, but yeah, that's the point I just wanted to touch on. Let's see what else she has to say.
I just feel really bad for them because as I keep saying accent it's just like a package.
Yeah.
But then there were some people who weren't like that. I remember there was this one person he had
Okay. I don't know what the young lady's angle is. I mean, I don't know what the young lady's angle is. Maybe it's like really simple and innocent, like she went to the Philippines to study English because it was cheap and it was convenient, and now like she's sort of invested all her time and energy and she feels attached and so she wants to defend them. Or it could be something more nefarious. Nefarious is probably a bad choice of words, but on the extreme end of the spectrum, she could have just been like poked and prodded by a whole bunch of poke swords and now she feels the need to defend them. I mean, I'm trying to be a gentleman, but but this is her point of view. I'm trying to like give you one side and give you the other end, the extreme end of the spectrum, and let you know that everything else in between, like all other variables, are plausible. So yeah, I don't know what she's on right now, but let's see. That person I have met, I'm sure it's a past, that person I had met, or a person I have met or had met. It's had met because it says had been to, has been to, has. Oh my God, the grammar's killing me.
has been to the Philippines and he has been to an elementary school in the Philippines. He saw the students there learning English during class and he said he was very impressed by how the English lessons weren't so strict and pressuring to the students, which is normally the case in Korea. And because he was showing such positive reactions, I was really happy and thankful. And I mentioned how there are many Koreans who are underrating this type of accent. His answer to this was it really touched me. He said, well, most Koreans don't even know how to speak in English fluently. Well, many Filipinos know how to speak in English.
That answer touched you. He made a simple statement. I don't understand how that touched you. You must be really attached to these people for something as simple and as menial as that statement to touch you. Um, mm, okay.
Which is absolutely true. Okay, so that was a very long intro. Let me just jump off to the
She means jump off to. Do you mean jump to? Let me just jump off, jump to. Um, this the what the gentleman said. I mean, we'll get back to this point. We'll get back to this point.
core of this video, which is the reason why. It's going to be based on my personal opinion and observations, so please don't take my words
No,
as it is. The first reason
please don't take my words as it is. Please don't take my words as is. Please don't take my words as fact. Please don't take my words to heart. Those are all okay. What you just said, please don't, doesn't make sense. All right. Pro-Western mindset. All right, let's go to
reason,
this.
which would be the most dominant one, I would say, is because of the pro-Western mindset of Koreans. There is still the tendency in Korean society that they look up to the American English, the and of course, for that mindset, you can trace back to the history and the culture of Korea, but I'm not going to dig deeper than
Okay, so just a brief history. The standard of English is usually British. Um, in Japan, the standard of English was British until the occupation of Japan. So after World War II and America came, the standard of English changed to American. The standard of English in Korea, it's been a long time since I went to Korea. In my hometown in Busan, it's the standard of English is still Americanized. I'm sure it's generally Korea itself. It's Americanized. Um, I think Hong Kong, Hong Kong is British, But yeah, it's just one of those things. So it's usually British or American, and that's through like, as the young lady said, it's through colon. I mean, look at the size of the UK. How many places have has it colonized? Just that small little country, and now like British, the standard of English is British in majority of places. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Carry on, madam.
This, but what I
Oh, back to a point that she said. The gentleman said that um, most Koreans can't speak English and most Filipinos can, which is technically not true because English is not a first language in Korea. It's a second language. It's the same as Japan. So Koreans and Japanese people and Filipino people will learn and they'll study English as a second language in schools and stuff. But unless you actively participate and use participate in it, unless you actively participate, unless you actually work in a job and practice, sorry, and practice and use English on a daily basis, it will never improve. It will never, it'll it'll stay stagnant. Um, so she's wrong about that. A lot of Filipinos that go to other countries for work and what have you, they will, they speak English, but the ones in the Philippines, a lot of the times, um, they won't speak. I mean, let's have a small, short little snippet of how Filipinos like they mock English because they actually ashamed to speak English. A lot of them are ashamed to speak English. There's a stigma like, oh, I'm having a nosebleed and stuff like that. They actually say things like that, which is like a inside joke. They'll say things like even the English, one of the comedians, hello, how are you to find out, which is I understand it's for comedic effect, but what happens is the adults will say, and then the children will learn from it, and then maybe that's considered what English is. That will be considered what the standard of English is or how English is spoken. So it's really hit and miss, and it's a very touchy subject, and there's a lot of like nuts and bolts in this conversation. So let's not get too deep into it.
could tell you is that pro-Western mindset is quite prevalent in Korea still. That is why many people could think that American or British English accent is the accent.
So yes, a lot of British culture, Western culture, a lot of Western culture is very prevalent in Asian countries. Um, so much so, even Korea and the Philippines actually, like the standard of beauty is like a Western beauty, like white skin and stuff like that. It's just one of those things. So there's going to be influence everywhere. So I'm trying to figure out what the complaint is so far.
Personally, I think that this is something that should be gone as time passes by, so the day will
Okay, so that's the
come that
complaint.
no matter what kind of accent you have,
Okay, so that's the complaint. So that's the complaint. And then the woman gave a very BS fortune cookie-esque answer that I can go to my local, my local Chinese shop and open up a fortune cookie and every accent is beautiful, blah 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 blah. But the truth is that will never happen, madam, because just the same way, excuse me, just the same way I go from like down south in London to the north and visit my family in Newcastle, say, and my accent will change. Just that's the same country. My accent will change staying there for 1 week, 4 weeks. You know what I mean? It's the same thing on a global scale. Each country has their own language and has their own distinct accent. All you're doing is you're adapting a certain language that you're learning to that accent, because it's one of those things that's never going to change, especially for first generation. For first generation speakers, it's one of those things. For second generation people who live in the UK or America, maybe they won't be able to speak their mother tongue, but they'll be able to speak English without an accent. They'll speak it like natively. Do you see what I mean? So it's just one of those things that's going to happen. And then you write, I mean, you do you with the fortune cookie answer. Yeah.
you will be respected. The second reason that I would like to talk about is how the media portrays the Philippines in Korea. I
Mhm.
think I could say that I've talked to quite a number of people in Korea about me living in the Philippines, and many of their reactions would be, oh my god, Isn't it so dangerous there? Like the drugs, pickpocketing. And of course, I know where they are coming from by saying that. It is partly true. There are dangerous places in the Philippines, but there are also safe places in the Philippines. It really
I mean, she's going off on a tangent. She's talking about cultural awareness and stuff like that now, which is not discussing the topic on the accent and like the English language in general. So depending on how long the young lady rambles on, I might just skip this. Um, but Aristotle once said, what did he say? I wrote this down. Aristotle once said, poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. So if it is a high crime area, if I remember right, the Philippines is a developing country. It's a third world country, developing country. So, there's a lot of poverty there, and poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. So, there's that.
depends on where you are. But because in Korean media there are many news or article titles like, oh, this is happening in the Philippines, like, oh, this happened in the Philippines, and they are usually negative. However, there are also very positive articles about the Philippines, the tourism, like Boracay, Cebu. Those places have such a good image to so many Koreans. It's like for many people, when you think of the Philippines, they think of Cebu, Boracay, because the Philippines is such a huge part of me. Every time I meet different people here in Korea and I were to introduce myself, I can never ever not mention the Philippines. And as I've mentioned, they will show various reactions. What I can do, whether the reactions are negative or positive, I will have to say that I care about the country, which means that if you are being rude to me for me staying in the Philippines or me having a Filipino accent, I will honestly speak up for myself.
You should speak up for yourself. No one really gives a damn. Unless you're one of those friends of, unless you're like a friend of a friend, and then I'm like introduced to you and I have to stick with you, and then I make a point, and then you sort of make me feel uncomfortable. That's the only time I probably have to stick around out of courtesy, out of respect for my friend. But otherwise, no, madam, you can stick up for yourself all you want. I'll give you the middle finger and I'll walk over that way. So you do you and I'll do me.
Although some people really will hate me for doing that,
Mm.
but I think those small steps are eventually something that will help improve really toxic stereotypes that many
I love these BS fortune cookie Oscar award winning statements. Like,
many people have around this whole world. Of course, I should not be rude. You cannot fight fire with fire. So fight fire with fast sea kind of mindset, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. All right,
it's
guys. So
okay.
thank you so
I
much
appreciate that was actually cute. That was very cute. I appreciate the levity at the end. That was a nice touch. Um,
for watching today's video.
ah,
Let me know
arigatou
about
gozaimasu.
your
Thank you so
thoughts
much,
in the comments
Jessica-san.
down